Expired. Senator Whish-Wilson.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. Around 3 years ago, I did my first Senator's statement on a burning issue that I care most deeply about, the threat of plastic pollution to our world's oceans and marine wildlife. I've campaigned on this issue for years coming into Parliament, and coming into the Senate, I couldn't think of a bigger global pollution issue we all face, that we talk so little about, that we know so little about, and that we take almost no action to fix. I'm pleased to report that 3 years later, the issue is now starting to get some international attention, some traction, so to speak. But there's so much more we have to do and can do. Only last week, the World Economic Forum released a report, The New Plastic Economy, Rethinking the Future of Plastics. This report produced some stark and stunning research. It estimated that there is approximately 150 million tonnes of plastic in the ocean today. If we continue with a business-as-usual scenario, that is around 8 million tonnes of plastic going into the ocean every year, then in 2025 the ocean is expected to contain 1 tonne of plastic to every 3 tonnes of fish. And by 2050 there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. That's right, by weight, in just over 30 years' time, the ocean will contain more plastic than fish. Microplastics, which are plastic that breaks down into smaller pieces, is already found throughout our marine food chain. Plastic in plankton, plastic in the stomachs of fish and other marine life. Given some plastic binds with dangerous toxic substances in the ocean, this also spells danger to human health, not just to our marine life. This fact was also recognised in the World Economic Forum report. What is most encouraging in this groundbreaking report is a recognition that plastic pollution crisis we face is not just an environmental problem, rather it's also an economic problem. An economic problem we can tackle at governmental, individual and at a business level. This report was a global call to arms for all governments to tackle this problem head-on. Plastic production has surged over the past 50 years. 15 million tonnes per annum was produced in 1964 to current 311 million tonnes in 2014, and this is expected to double again in the next 20 years. Plastic packaging, most of which is single-use plastic, that is plastic that's only used once, represents 26% of the total value of plastics produced. 95% of this plastic packaging material, estimated to be worth between $80 and $120 billion annually, is lost to the economy after its immediate use. In other words, it becomes rubbish. Only 14% of all plastic produced globally is collected for recycling, and only 5% of that 14% actually makes its way into a secondary or new product. So what happens to the rest? It goes to landfill, or it goes to what's called leakage. In other words, that means litter, Acting Deputy President. And the negative externality created by this litter, that is the damage it does to the environment and to community, especially in the ocean, is estimated to cost $40 billion annually, and this cost will grow with plastic production and future leakage. In other words, the 20th century's greatest invention is now one of the 21st century's biggest environmental and economic challenges. Government leadership will be central to meeting this challenge, redesigning packaging so it never becomes waste. Rather, it re-enters the economy as a valuable technical or biological input is the World Economic Forum's stated vision. In other words, create an effective after-use plastic economy. This will require investment and innovation that radically changes the economics, quality and uptake of recycling, a significant scale-up in the adoption of reusable packaging and industrial compostable plastic packaging for targeted applications. Additional measures will also be required to drastically reduce the leakage of plastics into natural ecosystems such as the ocean. What about Australia's role in cleaning up this global scourge. Marine debris is officially recognised in this country as a threatening process under our EPBC laws. A threat abatement plan was put in place in May 2009. A statutory review of the success of this plan was due 5 years later in May 2014. However, this review wasn't completed until the 28th of June last year. What this review does is check what actions were carried out against the objectives described in the original plan. The review showed that we aren't making anywhere near enough progress in addressing this problem locally. What we are now waiting for is direction from the Environment Minister, Greg Hunt, about when he will be publishing a new draft plan for the public to comment on. And Australia can't isolate itself from this global problem. We ourselves are impacting our oceans. Australia needs to find local solutions to the scourge of marine plastics, and Australia needs to work with others to show leadership, like we did decades ago in tackling climate change, and find better solutions for our region and for the planet. And I'm proud to say that Tasmania has shown leadership with a plastic bag ban, and we are seeing Queensland and New South Wales take tentative steps towards container deposit schemes, a scheme that has been so successful in reducing litter, especially plastic bottles, in South Australia. Incidentally, plastic bottles make up 2/3 of all plastic pollution found on our shores in Australia, according to a CSIRO report, so it's significant. And I want the Senate inquiry, which I'm very pleased to say kicks off in a couple of weeks in Sydney, to put all the evidence on the table about marine plastics. I want to hear from Australian and global experts on this biggest of problems and where we can start to clean up our act. I want some clear recommendations about what we can do here and what leadership roles we can play globally. Our oceans are already under significant stress. Climate change, ocean acidification, overfishing and now marine plastics. The ocean is turning into a plastic soup, and we all risk choking on this. Given the ocean is the womb of the earth, we need to do so much more to protect against choking this life source. I'm very much looking forward to working with passionate stakeholders across the country through the Senate inquiry process who agree with me on this issue. We've had submissions from environment groups of all scales, local through to national and international. These include the Total Environment Centre, the National Toxics Network, Clean Up Australia, the Surfrider Foundation, which I used to be part of, acting Deputy President, Humane Society International, EDOs around the country, Ocean Watch, BirdLife Australia, Australian Seabird Rescue Inc and the Boomerang Alliance, who do a fantastic job. We've heard from passionate experts like Emma Johnson from University of New South Wales and Ian Hutton from Lord Howe Island. Local, state and federal government agencies have also had their say. There are now 190 submissions online, and I thank everyone for their efforts they've gone to actually make these contributions. Hearings will kick off on the 18th of February in Sydney, and hopefully we'll continue this process. This is a historic inquiry. As far as we know of, it's the first parliamentary inquiry to bring together all the evidence and hear from stakeholders about this critical issue, and it's not before its time. This is the sort of consultation we hope the Environment Minister, Greg Hunt, will be doing to develop his threat abatement plan, and I hope the Senate process can make a positive contribution towards that process. I just want to finish by outlining, in the little time I have left, just some of the amazing Australian wildlife and global wildlife that we have now had some work done on and officially recorded as being impacted by the scourge of marine plastics, starting with turtles. Green turtles, olive-ridge turtles, loggerhead turtles, flatback turtles, the critically endangered hawksbill turtle and the gigantic leatherback turtle. These are all heavily impacted by marine debris and marine plastics. Whales, humpbacks, the endangered southern right whales and bride's whales. All dolphins have been affected, dugongs, Australian fur seals, New Zealand fur seals, Australian sea lions and even leopard and elephant seals. But mostly our sea bird life has been affected the worst. Pelicans, penguins, several types of albatross. The stomachs of mutton birds in turn have been found overloaded with pieces of plastic. In fact, 100% of all mutton birds that have been dissected have had stomachs full of plastic. We know from statistics in the Pacific that hundreds and thousands of seabirds such as albatrosses die every year from ingestion of marine plastics. So we know that fish and larger other species aren't immune to microplastics, and we actually need to take this issue very seriously. So in conclusion, we need a comprehensive national strategy to deal with this scourge. The Senate inquiry is critical in the process of developing the strategy, and I'm proud that I and the Australian Greens have instigated this important
Thank you,
inquiry.
Senator Whish.